Now, one of the most requested videos that we do is on Pope Gregory and the rejection of the title Universal Bishop. We have gotten a lot of requests for this one, and so here we are. And hopefully you'll be edified by it. Every one of our episodes, whether they be patron-only courses that we've got, or whether it be episodes for the general public, we pour our heart and soul into them. So everything does take a lot of work, including the fact that we try to provide brand new and fresh translations whenever they are viewed as necessary. So indeed, we double, triple, and quadruple check everything. So we're really thrilled with the final product of Pope Gregory's rejection of the title Universal Bishop and this brand new episode for you. We're thrilled. We're pumped. We're going to dive in. In order to fully grasp the implications of Pope St. Gregory the Great's rejection of the title Universal Bishop, we need to first examine the historical and theological context. Pope St. Gregory the Great, reigned from about 540 to 604 AD, lived during a time of intense rivalry between the sees of Rome and Constantinople. He was one of the key figures he was one of the key figures in the controversy, but one of the key figures that led to this controversy was John the Faster, the Patriarch of Constantinople. And in 588 AD, John claimed the title Ecumenical Patriarch, which translates to Universal Patriarch or Universal Bishop, a move that caused great alarm in the West, particularly in Rome. And we're going to find out exactly why. Yes, so let us dive in right now. The claim to being Universal Bishop was clearly seen as being problematic by Pope St. Gregory the Great for several reasons. We look at the usurpation of authority. Pope St. Gregory feared that John's use of this title could be interpreted as an attempt to elevate the See of Constantinople over all other bishops, including the See of Rome. People don't realize that. They think, oh, well, Pope Gregory the Great didn't view himself as having any kind of special authority. Pope Gregory the Great, viewed himself as an equal among all of his other fellow bishops. And they don't realize the context of what went down. Pope St. Gregory saw this as a threat to the collegial nature of the episcopacy, where bishops were equal in dignity, though some held higher authority. There are also misleading implications. For one, Pope St. Gregory's concern was that if one bishop claimed to be universal, it would imply that all other bishops were merely his delegates, undermining the autonomy and dignity of the episcopal offices established by the apostles. Pope St. Gregory saw this as dangerous for the church's hierarchical structure. That is key. Remember, it was dangerous for the church's hierarchical structure, where local bishops had rightful authority over their sees. Nobody has ever doubted or denied that. They had rightful authority over their sees, and this is something he also viewed as being problematic. But we look at the context of Gregory's rejection. It is crucial. Remember, context is always vitally important. Always vitally important. And it is crucial to note that Gregory was not rejecting the concept of Roman primacy or papal authority, but rather he was rejecting the misuse of a title that he believed undermined the church's unity and proper hierarchy. He wrote to the emperor, and in his letters, he expressed his concerns about the term universal bishop. However, Gregory's rejection of this title was not a rejection of the papacy, nor was it even a denial of the unique authority held by the Bishop of Rome. In letter 5, Pope St. Gregory the Great states, whoever calls himself or desires to be called universal priest is in his pride a forerunner of Antichrist, he lays out. Here, Pope St. Gregory the Great was not condemning the idea of primacy in the church. He was specifically rejecting John the Faster's self-aggrandizing use of the title in a way that would diminish the collegial nature of the episcopacy. For one, Pope St. Gregory's rejection of the term was not about the papal office. People get this wrong. It was not about the papal office, but about the inappropriate claim of universal authority by a single patriarch at the expense of the other bishops. This is key, and very often our interlocutors, whether they be Protestant or Eastern Orthodox, do tend to not lay that point home. That is very key to being able to understand why Pope St. Gregory the Great simply went against universal bishop. In fact, throughout Gregory's pontificate, he consistently upheld the unique role of the Roman See as the successor of St. Peter, endowed with a special authority over the universal church. His letters and actions, they demonstrate that he firmly believed in the divine origin of the papacy and Petrine primacy. And you all are in for a treat, because we're going to look, not only are we going to dive into Pope St. Gregory the Great's letters to refute these arguments, but we're going to look at the Bible. We're going to look at early church history. We're going to dive into the claims made against universal bishop like never before. We're going to dive in. We're going to uncover the theological information like never before. Scriptural evidence for papal authority. To further demonstrate the continuity of papal authority as established by Christ, we must turn to Scripture, where the foundations of the papacy are laid out clearly, particularly in relation to St. Peter's role as the leader of the apostles and the universal shepherd of the church. St. Peter's primacy in the Gospels. Supremacy. Remember, we utilize primacy and supremacy interchangeably. And if you want to see how that is biblical, and if you want to see the connection of Matthew 16 and Isaiah 22 like never before, from the Bible, from ancient manuscript history, and from the church fathers with brand new and fresh translations, check out our complete guide to the papacy in the Holy Bible. There's a link down below. If you haven't read our book on the papacy yet, get a hold of it now. You're going to love it. St. Peter's primacy in the Gospels. The most explicit scriptural evidence for the primacy of St. Peter, and by extension, the papacy, is found in the Gospel of Matthew. And I tell you, you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven, and whatever you bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven. Gospel of St. Matthew, chapter 16, verses 18 to 19. In this passage, Jesus singles out St. Peter, the Greek Petros, meaning rock, and establishes him as the foundation of his church. The keys of the kingdom of heaven symbolize authority, a direct reference to Isaiah 22:22, where the key to the house of David is a symbol of stewardship over God's people. In granting Peter the keys, Jesus is giving him a unique authority over the church, a unique one. Peter, as the shepherd of the church in John 21, after the resurrection, Jesus appears to the disciples and speaks directly to Peter. So we've looked at Matthew 16. Now we're looking briefly at the Gospel of St. John, chapter 21. Jesus said to Simon Peter, "Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these?" He said to him, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." And he said to him, "Feed my lambs." Said to him a second time, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" Said to him, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." Said to him, "Tend my sheep." He said to him a third time, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" Peter was grieved because he said to him a third time, "Do you love me?" And he said to him, "Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you." He said to him, "Feed my sheep." By the way, the tending literally means to shepherd. to shepherd the flock. That very often gets overlooked, that we're dealing with a shepherding, with being a head shepherd, to shepherd over the flock, to rule over the flock. And it doesn't mean to rule in a tyrannical manner, but to rule in a brotherly love kind of a manner. But it is, either which way you look at it, the concept is a very biblical concept. And very often our evangelical interlocutors overlook it, and very often our Protestant friends overlook it as well, because let us be clear, the way they interpret papal primacy or supremacy, if you will, in today's day and age, really simply does not line up with the way the early church interpreted it, and the way the early church looked at the Bible, and the way the early church looked at early church councils either. Here, Jesus explicitly commands Peter to shepherd his flock, a role of spiritual leadership that extends beyond the apostles and the early church. The charge to feed and tend Christ's sheep is a commission that mirrors the role of a shepherd, with St. Peter taking on the role of the chief shepherd after Christ. This is a clear sign of St. Peter's unique pastoral authority, which includes not just the apostles, but the entire church. The entire church. That is so key. Peter's leadership in the early church. St. Peter's leadership is also evident in the Acts of the Apostles, where he takes a central role in guiding the early church. In Acts 1, 15 to 26, Peter leads the apostles in choosing a replacement for Judas. In Acts 2, St. Peter delivers the first proclamation of the gospel at Pentecost. And in Acts 10, he is the first to bring the gospel to the Gentiles. Most significantly, Acts 1:20 identifies the apostles as bishops. They are bishops, remember. Acts 1:20 says, "For it is written in the book of Psalms, may his camp become desolate, and let there be no one to dwell in it, and let another take his office." The Greek word used for office here is episkope, which directly refers to the office of a bishop. This shows that the apostles were considered the first bishops of the church, with St. Peter clearly serving as their leader. There is no doubt. He is clearly serving as their leader. And if you don't understand that, I recommend you check our book out as we break this down meticulously, particularly the book of Acts. Of that, there is no doubt. The role of St. Peter in the Bible is a massively important role. And yes, it is a role that very often does get overlooked because people simply do not understand how to interpret early church history, or they're interpreting it through modern day lenses, whether it be modern day Eastern Orthodoxy, which very little resembles the faith of their fathers, very little, they've abandoned so much, or whether it be Protestantism, which of course, even that doesn't resemble the faith of their fathers, but even the faith of their fathers, being the Protestant reformers, does not line up with apostolic Christianity. So you've got a number of problems there right away that you encounter with Eastern Orthodoxy, with Protestantism, and without a doubt, even our Oriental Orthodox brothers and sisters and the Syrian Church of the East. We love them dearly. They are our brothers, but they lack this very clear teaching in their faith, and even they are incorrect on this. But you rarely hear them bringing this argument up because, credit to the Oriental Orthodox, they realize it's a very bad argument. But our Eastern brothers and sisters have got a lot more at stake because they remained united a lot longer and they agreed to all the papal prerogatives. So in order to try and rewind and eliminate those papal prerogatives, you're going to hear, oh, well, everything that's said about the papacy is merely Byzantine flattery. Oh, it's just flattery. For my Eastern friends, after some time, people are going to wisen up and they're going to start wondering, when does it end? When do the excuses end? We submitted. to the papacy. When East and West were united, the East recognized papal supremacy, and today the East has moved away from that. They've abandoned many apostolic teachings, but in particular, this apostolic teaching that they've abandoned should shock you. Should shock you. Because it is biblical and it is ancient. You've got it right there before your very eyes. The keys and universal shepherding. The combination of these passages demonstrates the following. St. Peter was given a unique authority directly by Christ in the form of the keys of the kingdom of heaven, Matthew 16:19, representing his role in governing the church. He was charged to shepherd Christ's flock, making him the chief shepherd after Christ. Gospel of John, St. John, chapter 21, verse 15 to 17. He acted as the leader of the apostles and the early church, taking decisive roles in doctrinal, disciplinary, and missionary matters. Acts 1, 2, and 10. From these scriptural foundations, the church understood Peter's successors, the bishops of Rome, to inherit his authority as the chief shepherds of the universal church. But we promise you, we were going to dive in and dive in deep, even looking at texts from Pope St. Gregory the Great that maybe you haven't even heard of, or maybe you weren't aware of. We're going to dive in like never before, looking at works, many of them that are very difficult to find online, many you cannot find online. And we're going to provide you with an incredibly robust defense of your Catholic faith like never before. That is what we promise for you here at Patristic Pillars, and we appreciate your incredible support. By the way, if you're watching this early, if you are tuning in early, that means you are a patron. We thank you from the bottom of our hearts. We are able to do the work we do because of your support over there, Patreon. There's a link down below. If you're not a patron yet, please consider either becoming a patron or a member of the channel. All of that will go towards helping our ministry and helping us produce material like this. If you appreciate the material, please consider supporting in one way or another. Now we dive into the Registrum, Book 5, Epistle 38. Epistle 18, excuse me. But with what daring or with what swelling of pride, I know not, you've attempted to seize upon a new name. And I want you to pay attention. This is so important to pay attention. You notice I was saying you've attempted to seize upon a new name, whereby the hearts of all your brethren might have come to take offense. I wonder exceedingly at this, since I remember how you would fain have fled from the episcopal office rather than attain it. And yet, now that you've got it, you desire so to exercise it as you had run to it with ambitious intent. For having confessed yourself unworthy to be called a bishop, you have at length been brought to such a pass as, despising your brethren, to covet to be named the only bishop. So the concern is not about having the power, a complete juridical authority, but rather very clearly about whether or not one can hold such a title and be the only bishop in existence. You see, context is so important. And without context, we don't get the full picture of anything. Without context, we don't get the full picture of anything or of everything. And yet here we do. You covet to be named the only bishop, and he's hammering out against that. So the concern is not about having the power of complete juridical authority, but rather about whether or not one can hold such a title and be the only bishop in existence. There you go. There you have it. You've got it right there, right before your very eyes. For to all who know the gospel, and by the way, this is another text that we're looking at from the masterful Pope St. Gregory the Great. This is another one, and look at how he weaves together the incredible passages from the Gospel of St. John, from the Gospel of St. Matthew, and the Gospel of St. Luke. For to all who know the gospel, it is apparent that by the Lord's voice, the care of the whole church was committed to the holy apostle and prince of all the apostles, Peter. For to him it is said, Peter, do you love me? Feed my sheep. Gospel of John, chapter 21:17. To him it is said, behold, Satan has desired to sift you as wheat, and I have prayed for you, Peter, that your faith fail not. And thou, when you are converted, strengthen your brethren. Gospel of St. Luke 22:31. To him it is said, you are Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. And I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven, and whatsoever you shall bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatsoever you shall loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven. Lo, he received the keys of the heavenly kingdom. Power to bind and loose is given him. The care and principality of the whole church is committed to him. And yet, he is not called the universal apostle, while the most holy man, my fellow priest John, attempts to be called the universal bishop. Now, what does he mean by universal? He means only. Now, we need to go back, look. He tells you, you covet to be named the only bishop. That clearly is the point. Clearly, when we think of Catholicos, or Catholicos, universal, think of it in that context. There is only one church that Christ founded, only one, and that is the one holy Catholic and apostolic church. It is the universal. So here, John is trying to usurp a title that doesn't belong to him or really to anyone. Universal in the sense of only clearly doesn't belong to anyone. And that is the whole point that Pope St. Gregory the Great is hammering against. That is the point. Yet, many times, we simply do not realize this. Why? Because simply we don't pay attention to the context. Context is vitally important. Pope St. Gregory lays that out. He says, lo, he received the keys of the heavenly kingdom, and power to bind and loose is given him. The care and principality of the whole church is committed to him, and yet he is not called the universal apostle. Notice everything he's laid out here. Here he lays out and he shows, look, Peter is the head shepherd. He quotes it right here. So don't come to me and tell me that Pope St. Gregory did not believe that St. Peter, and by extension, himself being a successor to St. Peter, being a successor to the office, believed it for himself as well. Don't tell me he didn't. He's quoting it. St. Peter is presented as the shepherd, the one that will strengthen the brethren, the rock upon which the church was built, the one that was given the keys to the kingdom of heaven. Yet he is not the only apostle, and yet he's not the only bishop. How do we know that's the context? He tells you right here. He covets to be named the only bishop. That is what he is condemning. And I get so tired of hearing people say otherwise. Why? Because they don't know better. And ultimately, why? Because they don't read. They get embroiled in internet polemics, arguments. Arguments very often don't have any substance to them. And these arguments that don't have any substance to them, that don't bring any edification to the faithful, tend to confuse people. I've had a lot of people that have wanted us to do shows on this, on the forgeries, whether or not that establishes papal supremacy. We're preparing that right now. We're working on those. And I've had people ask me to do shows in Canon 28. We're working on those as well. Everything you all have asked for, we're working on. We've promised you we're going to keep our word. We're working on all those. We've got a ton of material coming your way. We are so pumped. And why are we doing it? Because we frequently hear these arguments get brought up, and they're not good arguments, and we want to put them to rest. We want to show the audience that they are low-level, poor arguments that are being utilized, and these low-level and poor arguments that are being utilized are massively being ripped out of context. And if people only understood the context, they wouldn't be worried about these texts. They wouldn't be concerned, and they wouldn't be utilizing them in apologetics books. That to me shocks me the most, that they're utilizing them in apologetics books. People that should know better. But the masterful, the incredible pillar, Pope St. Gregory, goes onward. Do I in this matter, most pious Lord, defend my own cause? Do I resent my own special wrong? Nay, the cause of Almighty God, the cause of the universal church. If then anyone in that church takes to himself that name, whereby he makes himself the head of all the good, it follows that the universal church falls from its standing, which God forbid, when he who is called the universal falls. But far from Christian hearts be that name of blasphemy, in which the honor of all priests is taken away, while it is madly arrogated to himself by one. Notice how he draws a parallel to the universal church. There is only one church. There are not multiple churches. There's only one church, and that is a parallel to universal bishop, meaning only one. That's the parallel. If anybody tells you, well, William, you're taking it out of context, that's the parallel that he gives you right in the letter here. And don't tell me that he didn't believe that he held papal supremacy, that he believed in papal supremacy. Don't give me that, please. You got to do better. Please don't tell me that. Why not? Because he clearly did. He quotes the passages, applying them to the office of the papacy, Matthew 16, Gospel of St. Luke, Gospel of St. Matthew, chapter 16, Gospel of St. Luke, 22, the Gospel of St. John, chapter 21, and the famous papal passages. He applies to himself. He applies to himself. Certainly, in honor of Peter, Prince of the Apostles, it was offered by the Venerable Synod of Chalcedon to the Roman pontiff, but none of them has ever consented to use this name of singularity, lest by something being given peculiarly to one, priests in general should be deprived of the honor due to them. Book 5, letter 20. But if anybody's going to tell you that Pope St. Gregory the Great didn't believe in papal supremacy, in particular that he had this power, then they haven't read him. They haven't read his writings. They're not aware of it. And likely that's because a lot of them aren't available for free online. Some of them you got to go to critical texts to read. Some of them you've got to find in old dusty translations that aren't available for free on newadvent.org, where the majority of people are getting their free quotations from. They're just not available online. This one is available because we're bringing them forth. But we who, though unworthy, have taken the government of the apostolic see in the stead of Peter, the prince of the apostles, are compelled by the very office of our pontificate to resist the general enemy by all the efforts in our power. Yet you're going to tell me he didn't believe that he had the power? Well, he tells you here, we're unworthy, but we've undertaken the government of the apostolic see in the place of St. Peter, the prince of the apostles. And guess what? We are at the head, is the message he's conveying. Of that, there's no doubt there. Who would dare claim? Who would dare claim that there is not papal supremacy here? All over Pope St. Gregory the Great's writings, you're going to encounter his belief in papal supremacy. It's all over there. So when I hear people use the universal bishop argument, you may think, well, wow, that's a low-level argument. I'm telling you that their apologists are using it in Eastern Orthodoxy and in Protestantism. I'm telling you right now. You may be saying in the back of your mind, well, goodness, these are really bad and low-level arguments, and I agree with you, but they're utilizing them. It doesn't get any better for their cause as we go onward. For the more you fear the creator of all, the more fully may you love the church of him to whom it was said, you are Peter, And upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. And to whom it is said, to you I will give the keys of the kingdom of heaven. And whatever you shall bind on earth shall be bound in heaven. Whatsoever you shall loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven. Yeah, you can bet your bottom dollar Pope St. Gregory the Great believed that he had a certain kind of power that the other successors to the apostles did not have. This is very clear from the writings that we're reading. And yet, we are going to continue to hear these arguments conjured up. And they're not good. Now, 8 years ago, in the time of my predecessor of holy memory, Pelagius, our brother and fellow bishop John in the city of Constantinople, seeking occasion from another cause, held a synod council in which he attempted to call himself universal bishop, which as soon as my said predecessor knew, he dispatched letters annulling. How could he do that if he didn't have primacy and supremacy? Look at that. He dispatched letters annulling by the authority of the holy apostle Peter the acts of the said synod, of which letters I have taken care to send copies to your holiness. It sure does sound like me. Like to me, it sure does sound to me like he believed he had a certain kind of power vested in him spiritually from our incarnate Lord and Savior, from Christ. But people are going to tell you, no, that's not the case. People are going to tell you, no, that you're taking it out of context. The reason they're going to do that is because they're not aware of the writings of Pope St. Gregory the Great, and they're not reading them. They're not reading the writings of Pope St. Gregory the Great. That is why. Clearly, that is the point being put forth. This quote is important because it shows a Western bishop asserting authority, including annulment power over Eastern synods in Constantinople, which some Orthodox elevate above Rome. Who knows why? This act of jurisdiction directly shows Rome's universal authority, supported by an appeal to St. Peter. Since Pope St. Gregory is also venerated in the East, this weakens arguments utilized by the Eastern Orthodox against Catholicism. He also, now this is a good one. This is a really good one. What else does he do? I mean, we've got so many examples from Pope St. Gregory the Great. He calls the Diocese of Rome the Apostolic See, which is the head of all other churches. He said, I, albeit unworthy, have been set up in command of the church. He taught that the Pope, as successor to Peter, was granted by God a primacy over all other bishops. I want to remind you, when we talk about a primacy, we mean a supremacy. That's what we've always meant. That clearly is what is being laid out here as well. We hope you've been edified. Do us a huge favor if you have. Please smash the like button and share and subscribe if you haven't yet. Please also consider supporting our apostolate, whether either by donation or becoming a patron or a member. Your help has allowed our ministry to become what it is, a ministry where we present top-tier elite information for you, for the faithful, by the grace of God, because we compile these by working with the top scholars in the world. Many of these are compiled by myself, and then I do shows together where you see Father Coppins and myself hammering together information at the highest level of critical scholarship for your edification. Your support means the world to us, and our ministry can only survive because of your support. Without it, we wouldn't be here. And because of that, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. I'd also ask, above and beyond everything else, to pray for us, to pray for me, my family, and to flood the comment section for the algorithm. Let me tell you one thing. If you like this video and you want it to get out more and more people to see it, then we need you to flood the comment section for the algorithm, for the grace of God. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you so much for tuning in. God bless you. God keep you. I can't wait to talk to you again, which will be very soon.